Hello, everyone, and welcome to Foxy's Quiz World. Do you really know all U.S. state flags? Let's find out together in this quiz. You'll have 5 seconds to guess each one. Choose the correct state before time runs out. Let's see how many you can get right. Are you ready? Let's get started. First question. Which U.S. state does this flag belong to? California, Nevada, or Oregon? California. Which U.S. state does this flag belong to? New Mexico, Texas, or Oklahoma? Texas. Which U.S. state does this flag belong to? Alabama, Florida, or Georgia? Florida. Which U.S. state does this flag belong to? Pennsylvania, Michigan, or New York? New York. Fifth question. Which U.S. state does this flag belong to? Hawaii, Alaska, or California? Hawaii. Which U.S. state does this flag belong to? Montana, Alaska, or Wyoming? Alaska. Which U.S. state does this flag belong to? Arizona, Utah, or New Mexico? Arizona. Which U.S. state does this flag belong to? Wyoming, Idaho, or Colorado? Colorado. Which U.S. state does this flag belong to? Indiana, Illinois, or Ohio? Illinois. Next question. Which U.S. state does this flag belong to? Oregon, Idaho, or Washington? Washington. Which U.S. state does this flag belong to? Georgia, Mississippi, or South Carolina? Georgia. Which U.S. state does this flag belong to? West Virginia, Virginia, or Kentucky? Virginia. Which U.S. state does this flag belong to? North Carolina, South Carolina, or Tennessee? North Carolina. Which U.S. state does this flag belong to? Georgia, Alabama, or South Carolina? South Carolina. 15th question. Which U.S. state does this flag belong to? Michigan, Ohio, or Indiana? Ohio. Which U.S. state does this flag belong to? Michigan, Minnesota, or Wisconsin? Michigan. Which U.S. state does this flag belong to? Minnesota, Iowa, or Wisconsin? Wisconsin. Which U.S. state does this flag belong to? North Dakota, South Dakota, or Minnesota? Minnesota. Which U.S. state does this flag belong to? Pennsylvania, New Jersey, or Delaware? Pennsylvania. Next question. Which U.S. state does this flag belong to? New York, New Jersey, or Connecticut? New Jersey. Which U.S. state does this flag belong to? Pennsylvania, Maryland, or Delaware? Delaware. Which U.S. state does this flag belong to? Maryland, Virginia, or Delaware? Maryland. Which U.S. state does this flag belong to? Maine, New Hampshire, or Massachusetts? Massachusetts. Which U.S. state does this flag belong to? Maine, Vermont, or New Hampshire? Maine. 25th question. Which U.S. state does this flag belong to? Massachusetts, New Hampshire, or Vermont? New Hampshire. Which U.S. state does this flag belong to? Vermont, New York, or Maine? Vermont. Which U.S. state does this flag belong to? Connecticut, Rhode Island, or New Jersey? Connecticut. Which U.S. state does this flag belong to? Connecticut, Delaware, or Rhode Island? Rhode Island. Which U.S. state does this flag belong to? Kentucky, Tennessee, or Missouri? Kentucky. Which U.S. state does this flag belong to? Kentucky, Tennessee, or Arkansas? Tennessee. Which U.S. state does this flag belong to? Kansas, Iowa, or Missouri? Missouri. Which U.S. state does this flag belong to? Oklahoma, Arkansas, or Missouri? Arkansas. Which U.S. state does this flag belong to? Louisiana, Mississippi, or Alabama? Louisiana. Which U.S. state does this flag belong to? Georgia, Mississippi, or Alabama? Mississippi. 35th question. Which U.S. state does this flag belong to? Mississippi, Florida, or Alabama? Alabama. Which U.S. state does this flag belong to? Iowa, Nebraska, or Kansas? Iowa. Which U.S. state does this flag belong to? Kansas, Nebraska, or Iowa? Kansas. Which U.S. state does this flag belong to? South Dakota, Kansas, or Nebraska? Nebraska. Which U.S. state does this flag belong to? North Dakota, Wyoming, or South Dakota? South Dakota. Next question. Which U.S. state does this flag belong to? Montana, South Dakota, or North Dakota? North Dakota. Which U.S. state does this flag belong to? Wyoming, Montana, or Idaho? Montana. Which U.S. state does this flag belong to? Wyoming, Nebraska, or Kansas? Wyoming. Which U.S. state does this flag belong to? Utah, Idaho, or Nevada? Idaho. Which U.S. state does this flag belong to? Connecticut, Delaware, or Utah? Utah. Which U.S. state does this flag belong to? Nevada, Arizona, or Kansas? Nevada. Which U.S. state does this flag belong to? New Mexico, Arizona, or Texas? New Mexico. Which U.S. state does this flag belong to? Kansas, Oklahoma, or Texas? Oklahoma. Which U.S. state does this flag belong to? Oregon, Washington, or California? Oregon. Which U.S. state does this flag belong to? Illinois, Ohio, or Indiana? Indiana. Which U.S. state does this flag belong to? West Virginia, Virginia, or Kentucky? West Virginia.